Now for the eighth wonder of the world, basically a geek show. And here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 61 of Basically a Geek Show. Geek Show, Geek Show, Geek Show.
Was that necessary?
I thought it was.
Fair enough. So, not a whole hell of a lot really going on to talk about, but we do have a few things, and I think we have at least one of them being quality over quantity. If nothing else, in the sheer amount of rage and or disappointment it is generating with Mike and myself.
Well, indeed, but let's start off, let's save that for later, and let's start off with Mike reviews Fan-Fortastic.
Fan-Fortastic is...
That's how they're stylizing it.
Oh, okay.
Because they're replacing the A in Fantastic, like the middle A in Fantastic with a 4, so it reads Fan-Fortastic.
They're so clever. I want to be like them.
Indeed. I mean, I think it's a shame, because that should have been saved for Dark of the Moon, Transformers Age of Extinction. That could have been Transformers.
Right? Because then it would have been like a triple pun thing.
Indeed.
And it'd been like more effective and shit, but no.
Layers.
Yeah, it's layered.
Before we get on with that, I want to give a shout out to a loyal, basically a Geek Show listener, Mr. Negative 15. Mr. Negative 15 heard that I was getting into a classic video gaming kick this summer, and he sent me one Tommy the Sword Sega Genesis baseball cartridge and a complete in-package Sega Game Gear PGA Tour golf game. And he just heard that I was interested, that I was collecting for both the Game Gear and the Genesis, and said, hey, I happen to have these lying around, would you like them? And he sent them to me free of charge, so thank you, man, very much appreciated.
Very nice, very nice.
So, I just wanted to get all of that out of the way before, because the two topics that we have lined up for tonight are kind of rage-inducing, and they could get us on tangents. So I wanted to get the thanks out of the way, so I didn't forget it in the rage that these two
And so they didn't come out as, oh, and by the way, fucking thank you!
Indeed.
Yeah, that'd be awkward.
Indeed. So, let's get right back into it. As, you know, you guys can tell, the first topic that's going to induce rage is Fan-Fortastic, or Fantastic Four. It is the reboot of the series, helmed by Fox. They made the film, basically, obviously it wasn't just to hang on to the film rights, but they needed to make a film to hold on to the rights, and I think they kind of used it as an opportunity. They wanted to reboot it. There was a lot of talk that they were going to cross the Fantastic Four movies, this new series, over with the X-Men series, because those are two Marvel properties that Fox owns, and they could get a lot of mileage out of that. And obviously there's a lot of tension, whereas Sony has agreed to play ball with Marvel regarding Spider-Man, Fox and Marvel have been at each other's throats. They had the warring Quicksilvers in Days of Futures Past and Avengers 2. You had Marvel doing shit like canceling the Fantastic Four outright and then declaring that no new characters would be made for X-Men. So, a lot of... and those, of course, are on the comic side of Marvel. So there's a lot of
User left
back and forth. There's a lot of negativity there is what I'm getting at. And this was going to be Fox's way to get another franchise into their own, I guess, quote, Marvel Cinematic Universe to compete with Marvel's. And it has bombed spectacular. This is not a good movie. I guess if you want a spoiler-free version, there it is. It's not a good movie. Don't see it.
didn't we already pretty much call that though?
Oh, we did.
I mean,
yes,
when we just even heard what they were doing with Dr. Doom or whatever the fuck, like, I mean, we knew it was going to be this smelly ball sack of a movie.
I don't know. Now, here's the thing. It seems, as far as what Dr. Doom is, it was weird. Like, they initially announced that, he wasn't going to be called, Victor Von Doom. He was going to be Victor Domashev or something.
Right.
They changed that. It is, his name is Victor Von Doom. He is from Latveria, but whereas in the comics he is the king of Latveria, here he is still kind of this antisocial computer programmer thing, so they did deviate on his origins, but that's really the least of the film's problems. And another thing that doesn't even factor in the people freaking out, oh, they made the Human Torch black! That's not the problem at all. I mean, all of the actors, every single one of them, they actually do a good job. The acting isn't the problem here. It's that the script is horseshit. And it seems confused, and apparently there was a lot of baggage with this one. The director came out and disowned it on opening day on Twitter.
Wow.
Yeah, okay, so the director, Josh Trank, he directed the superhero film Chronicle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that, Jack.
I have not, no.
It's a found footage superhero film. It's alright. But he wanted to take, this in a completely different direction. He wanted to do something that other superhero films really hadn't done before. Apparently Fox, after greenlighting his vision, saw the finished product and then reshot, like, the entire last third of the movie without his, like, knowledge or consent. And it's really telling because, okay, Kate Mara, she plays, Susan Storm, the Invisible Woman. And Susan Storm, the character, is a blonde. Kate Mara is not blonde, but that's okay. They give her a convincing dye job, so it's not a problem. But you could tell that when they did the reshoots, her hair, obviously, you know, the dyed part had grown out, so instead of just re-dyeing her hair, they gave her, like, a really shitty-looking blonde wig. Like, the type of shitty blonde wig you'd find if you went to, like, a Spencer's Gifts.
Nice.
And so, and it's not like there's a clear cutoff, so, like, scenes alternate between her having, like, natural-looking blonde hair and clearly wearing shitty blonde wig. That, of course, being a huge misstep. This is troubling because there's just so much. I guess I can start from the beginning. Because otherwise I won't know where to start tackling this turd wreck.
Lol.
It starts off in the year 2007. And you know you're old when, you know, the years that you were in university are referred to as, like, the distant past, right? Like, they're the flashback years. And I'm like, oh god, I'm old. 2007 is now being used as, like, the reference point for, like, back in the day. God. But it starts in 2007. Reed Richards is in, like, grade 5, and he and Ben Grimm invent basically a teleporter. And you flash forward now to 2014, and they're in high school, and they're at this high school science fair, and they have their teleporter. It's been perfected now, and they have the most stereotypical asshole teacher there who's like, I don't care if you just teleported something directly before my eyes. I think it's magic, and I have deemed you a witch. You are disqualified. And then Reed Richards is like, aww. And then out of nowhere, Franklin Storm, who is the father of Sue Storm and Johnny Storm, Franklin Storm just pops by. He's like, "Oh, hey, I see you invented a teleporter. Would you like a scholarship to my foundation?"
But it's really Hogwarts.
But it's like, what's this guy doing? Like, he just does this guy just pop around high school science fairs on the off chance that he will stumble across, like, a child prodigy?
Dude, there's some creepy shit out there, I'm here to tell you.
Yeah.
I got some candy in the van if you want to come join my organization here. Show me your teleporter in the van.
Yeah, I just don't understand why, like he provides no pretext. He's just like, "Oh, I'm here now, and I see you've invented a trans-dimensional teleporter. Here's a foundation here's a scholarship to the Baxter Foundation." It's like, well, okay, wait a minute, Baxter, is that a school? Like, you can get a foundation, you can get a scholarship to a school, like a university scholarship, you can get that, but...
Yeah, don't foundations give scholarships to universities? Not to,
like the Baxter Foundation should be giving him, like, a scholarship to go to, like, MIT or Caltech or something. But no, it's like he gets a scholarship from the Baxter Foundation to go to the Baxter Foundation, and it's like, is this a school? They never really make it clear if it's like a university, but apparently it's being run by a board of directors like it's a business, and the board of directors is all like, "Franklin Storm, we demand results!" And it's like, oh my god, this is so trite. This is so goddamn trite. And then, like, at this point, Ben Grimm just fucks off because, he's just the guy who's been working on this thing for, 7 years. But no, he doesn't get to go to the foundation. So it's, at this point, we just follow Reed and Sue Storm around, and then Johnny Storm shows up, and Johnny Storm's entire character in this movie is, "I don't like my dad because he wants me to be a scientist, but I just want to race cars."
Makes sense. That's what happened to Jeff Gordon.
Is it now?
Yeah. He gave in, of course, and he became a race car driver. But, in fact, this is almost biographical of Jeff Gordon.
Oh, well, so Jeff Gordon became the Human Torch.
And black. Evidently.
I think NASCAR would implode if there was a black race car driver.
It would be interesting to see.
You know what? I bet a movie based on the first black NASCAR driver would be more interesting than this. But I digress.
Probably.
Let's move on. So, basically, everything, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that everything is so painfully trite and painfully by the numbers. It's like you've got Reed Richards, he's the unappreciated genius. You've got the teacher who, despite apparently being a science teacher because he's judging a science fair, dismisses a scientific breakthrough even after he sees it with his own eyes. You've got Franklin Storm appearing at a high school science fair for no reason other than the plot demanded he be there so he could give Reed a scholarship to something that I don't even know is a school. And it's just, what is going on? But here's the thing. As all this is going through, we haven't even gotten to the worst part of the movie yet. It really starts ramping up. They basically bring Reed on, Johnny Storm, crashes his car or something, so his dad's like, "You're not gonna get your car back until you help my team build their interdimensional transporter, because the fact that you are good at working on cars means you're good at physics."
And he has to do it in 24 hours with nothing but a team of ragtag youths from the inner city.
Or else the businessman buys the youth center and tears it down.
Yes. I mean, this kind of sounds like it's one of those things almost.
No, it's not, cause at least those movies have their own charm to it, like it's a cheesy, stupid charm, but at least there's energy to it. This is just bland. It's trite, it's by the numbers, but it's not even doing it in a way that makes it enjoyable. It's just bland. So we move on, and, Victor Von Doom, right? He's like the guy. He's like the guy who conceived of the theory of this transdimensional, realm, but Reed Richards is the guy who actually figured out how to build the machine to get there. And so they join forces in this foundation, and, Victor Von Doom gets them all excited. He's like, once we get the teleporter working, we're going to send over, like, a chimp to, like, do on a test flight. And then once we know it's safe to send organic matter over there, then we're all gonna get to go, and we'll be the first human beings to go there. And I'm like, no, that's, and I was like, no, that's a bad idea. And then the movie kind of follows up on this, because after they successfully send the chimp back and forth, then the Foundation's like, awesome, now we're gonna turn this project over to NASA. And I'm like, that makes sense. You send the test pilots and the astronauts on the test flight. You don't, but when this announcement's made, the team of Johnny Storm, Victor, and Reed, they're pissed off because they're like, we were gonna be the ones to go. I'm like, no, you don't get to go. The scientists who built the Apollo rocket weren't the ones in the capsule, because being a scientist doesn't qualify you to be an explorer on an uncharted world. And if something goes wrong, they kind of need the people who know how to build the thing there to fix it. Right? So, their whole motivation for being slighted is complete bullshit. And other than that, like, this is where it gets stupid.
Oh, it hasn't gotten stupid yet?
No, this is where it gets really stupid. Victor is like, oh hey, they're not gonna let us go on the mission. Hey guys, let's just drown our sorrows, let's get drunk. And so like, they get drunk. And they decide to go and hijack this device and jump to the other dimension while drunk.
As one will do.
The decision that sets up the events that turn them into the Fantastic Four is all done on like a drunken impulse.
Well, okay. Now let me step in here, because I'm going to say that actually makes more sense to me than Reed Richards deciding to endanger his family and colleagues by cramming them onto a spaceship. I mean, because like, the first thing you think of when you hear that, you're like, okay, well what the fuck was he on? Well, this answers the question what the fuck he was on. He was drunk. Okay, fair enough. I'll buy that.
But here's the thing. Okay, so, so it's Victor, Johnny, and Reed, and they're like, okay, we're drunk, we're gonna go jump over there. And then they're like, and then Reed goes, oh, I'm gonna call Ben Grimm, because Ben is his longtime friend who's been working on this project with him for 7 years. So he's like, hey, Ben, we're gonna do it. I want you to come with us because you've been there since the beginning. And it's like, okay, that's kind of contrived how he'd, like, do that, because Ben hasn't been working on the actual human-sized transporter. Like, it just seems like a bad idea. But okay, he's the thing. This is the story of how they got their powers. He has to come along. I get that. Except that there are 4 pods in this transdimensional vehicle. And now we've got 4. We've got Ben Grimm, we've got Victor Von Doom, Johnny Storm, and Reed Richards. Sue Storm, one of the key members of the Fantastic Four, she's not even on the trip!
So then what the fuck happens to her?
No, I'll get there. But you realize they're leaving Sue Storm out of the pivotal event that makes them the Fantastic Four, and then you realize, holy shit, what did she say 15 minutes ago? That's right, her job on this project is making the environmental suits, which means the only job of the woman on the group is making clothes for the men who go on the mission.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm sure there's need for sandwiches too.
So, it's just like God. Well, basically what happens is those four jump over, and they jump over and it's like, oh, it's cool, we're on the other dimension, and then Victor Von Doom sees this like glowing pool of green goo, he's like, I'm gonna go over there and touch it!
Well, makes sense.
And then he touches it, and it swallows him up, and then there's this huge disaster, and the other three get into their pods, and they're like radioing back to like our dimension. He's like, Sue, if you're there, help us! And she's on the computer, she's like, I will do typing to bring you back! And then she gets them back, but not before like they get blasted by gamma rays or whatever. And then they're sent back into our dimension. They assume Victor's dead. Spoilers, he's not. And, as it's coming back, there's this huge explosion, and the explosion sort of hits, Sue, and she gets hit with the blast of radiation, so that gives her powers.
If only it worked that way.
Uh-huh. So, and this is kind of where the movie you start to notice that there was a lot of reshooting involved, and that you have two competing visions here. Because the movie has actually been fairly well paced. I mean, there are issues that you can make with the plot. There are issues you could, point to, with a lack of character development up to this point. But on the whole, as a film up to this point, the pacing's been a bit long, but I mean, it's 45 minutes into an hour and 30 movie before they even get their powers, which is a problem, but the way that it's paced up until this point, it's not really something you notice. It's fine. It can still work. But here's where shit goes off the rails, because you can tell this is where they completely reshot the movie. Reed wakes up all stretchy in like an army base, and he's like, oh no! My friends! I'm no use to anyone, this is all my fault! And so he uses his stretchy powers to sneak out of this army base, and he goes on the run. And then meanwhile, the head of the Baxter Foundation is all like, hey, Ben Grimm! You're a giant rock monster now! Reed Richards, he was a bitch. He left you here. Would you like to help? Would you like to join the military and break things for the U.S. Army? And he's like, okay. That never happened in the comics, by the way. They never joined the army to break things. And then, Sue Storm is now there in her shitty blonde wig, and she's just being angsty, like, we can't let them turn us into weapons. And Johnny Storm's all like, I love the army because they let me blow shit up with my fireballs.
That's fairly sound logic, honestly.
And it kind of just dicks around, and Sue Storm's big moment is like, you're really good at noticing patterns. We can't find Reed, but we get glimpses of his activity on the net. We need you to decode the pattern. She's like, I will use typing to find the pattern!
She's good at typing, isn't she?
She really is. So, again, to recap, the main female character's two traits are make clothes for the men and typing. So,
fair enough.
Just putting that out there. Aha, moving on. And so they discover Reed is in, I think it was Panama. It was Panama, Guatemala, one of the not Mexicos. Right?
Send your hate mail too.
You can find us on Twitter at Geek Show.
Oh, Jesus.
But, anyway, they find him there. The Thing is, like, rightfully pissed off that Reed Richards left him. But they're like, we need Reed Richards to rebuild the dimensional jumper thing, because now he can if he fixes it, we can study the other dimension and find a cure for us. So Reed fixes it. This time they actually, do the right thing and send the trained professional scientists and astronauts.
Poppycock.
Over to the other dimension. So they show up. And they're like, oh hey, maybe we should do some science here. Let's get soil samples. And so they start setting up their tests, and then they see like, oh my god, there's a human figure walking towards us. And like, Reed is like, but that is impossible! Could it be Victor? And it's Victor. And keep in mind that it's been, in terms of the movie, it's been a year between the first time they went over and now. So Victor has somehow survived on this alien dimension world. He was last seen falling into a puddle of radioactive goo. It's a completely alien environment. There's no food, no water, so who knows how he survived. And he doesn't explain it. They even ask him once they bring him back to our universe, like, how did you survive over there, Victor? And he's just like, that place gave me strength. And then, all of a sudden, he's like, I want to destroy the world. And he's got, and they accomplish the Dr. Doom's metallic face in the comic books is a mask. He's got a scarred up face, and like, he wears the metal mask thing, right?
Right.
Here, that's not the case. Here, apparently what happened was, like, the green goop, like, fused his silver spacesuit to his body, so now he looks like a melted knockoff action figure from the 60s with, like, the really shitty robot mouth, like the grate that just stands in for a mouth.
Nice.
Like, he looks like the most piss-poor supervillain of all time. And he's got this really, really sad, like, green Santa Claus outfit that's supposed to reference, like, his costume from the comic books. But he's got this weird Santa Claus cloak, green Santa Claus cloak that he's got draped over him. And he's like...
Who wants to sit on my lap?
No, he's like...
Oh.
They're like, Victor, we're going to try to make you better. And he's like, I am fine. My other world. I knew you'd come back. Humans have destroyed this world, and now you want to destroy my world? I will destroy this world so my world may live. And it's like, what? Where did this come from? But before he even can do that, he gets up and he starts making people's heads explode.
Sweet.
He's got like this really ill-defined power. Like they really don't define what his powers are. It's just like he can do whatever the script needs him to do. He needs to get by a battalion of soldiers so he makes their heads explode. He needs to fight the Thing so he can throw energy blasts, right? It's like, what is his power? And again, Dr. Doom has no superpower in the comic books. He's just a dude who's the king of a country, and he's a really smart scientist, but he doesn't have superpowers. He's kind of like Iron Man or Batman in that he's just really rich and smart.
Right.
Only evil. But here they've given him superpowers, and he goes into like the trans-dimensional thing, he hops over to the other dimension, and then he builds this monolith out of like, he starts doing, you know in Watchmen when Dr. Manhattan starts building his pleasure palace on Mars?
Yes.
It's kind of like that, where like Dr. Doom is just like, he's like raising his hand to like dramatic opera music, like da 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 da, and the giant pillars of Earth are coming up, like he's willing the Earth, and it forms like this pyramid kind of thing, and like in the center of it is this glowing blue hole, and he creates a black hole that is going to suck our world into it so only his world will survive. And then the Fantastic Four like jump over to the other dimension, and they can now survive over there without spacesuits, even though it's been established that you need a spacesuit to survive, but now you don't because shut up, the movie needs to end somehow.
And it needs to end eventually.
Yeah. And so they do the thing where they all try to beat him individually, and Doom is like, don't bring that weak shit! And then so Reed Richards does the speech where he's like, he is stronger than each of us, but he is not stronger than all of us. Teamwork!
Lol.
They use teamwork, of course, and they throw Victor into the swirling blue thing, and he dies, and then the world is saved. And then the U.S. military is like, we would like you to keep working for us. And they're like, we will, but under our terms. We want a research facility with unlimited resources. And the military's like, we think we have a place for that. And so they give them this, like, giant lab out in the middle of the woods somewhere, and they're walking through it, and Reed Richards is like, you know what? I think we're a family now. He's like, it just feels fantastic.
Oh, Jesus.
Credits. And it's, oh god. I mean, they should have just had Reed Richards go, it feels fantastic, and then give the double guns to the audience.
So, now
you should have just done that.
Now, after you watched this movie, did you have to pay a hooker to give you a hug?
No. I do want to, noted though, that I could not get anyone to see this with me.
You suffer alone.
I was like, everyone I knew, I'm calling up, it's like, hey, wanna go see Fantastic Four? It's like, no!
Gotta floss the cat's teeth.
I'm like, oh.
Buried alive.
I don't really give a shit about the Fantastic Four in general. I just kinda like Marvel, and the Fantastic Four have always been a part of that, and I like Dr. Doom as a villain, only the movie fucked him up, so I don't even know what was there. People are calling the guy who played Franklin Storm, he is the rib guy from American House of Cards, Reg E. Cathy.
Oh, the rib guy. Yeah, I like the rib guy.
People have been calling him, Discount Morgan Freeman in this movie. That's unfair.
That's unfair to the actor.
As I said, the acting isn't the problem. Everyone does their parts. Everyone acts well. Everyone, like, the performances are absolutely fine. The performances range from completely fine to, pretty good. It's just that the script is terrible. As I said, this is a film that's roughly an hour and a half long. It might be a little longer, but roughly an hour and a half long.
So
it takes 45 minutes for them to get their powers, which again is a bit long, but it could work depending on how the rest of the movie goes. But it's like the way, and this is probably a result of all the reshoots they did from that 45-minute point onward. They were like, they rushed it to conclusion. Like, everything about the conclusion is rushed. Doom's motivations are very vague. His powers are vague. The means by which he creates a black hole to swallow the world are vague. We just, they were like, we need an ending. So Dr. Doom will create a thing with his mind powers. Go!
So here's the thing, right? Like, I have not seen this movie, and frankly, I'm probably not going to. Because I don't like the Fantastic Four. I don't like, I like Marvel well enough, but I don't like them so much that anything they do, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to.
Well, this isn't Marvel. This isn't Marvel Studios, this is Fox.
Well, yeah, I know, but it's a Marvel property, is what I'm saying. But, okay, so here's the thing, right? Like, a lot of what you're telling me seems to indicate that this movie was a piece of shit before they even did the editing and did the reshoots.
I will say that I could see, from what I've heard about the original cut, which we'll probably never see, so again, I can't say this for sure, it could have potentially been salvageable, but I doubt it. As it is, it was a complete clusterfuck.
Well, so, 3 Fantastic Four movies have been made now, and all 3 suck ass.
The best one is actually the one from the 90s that was never released. It was just made to retain the film rights. It was, made in like a month on a $1 million budget.
Wow.
The effects are shit, but it's actually not bad.
Yeah. So, things and stuff, I guess. Was there anything else that, beyond don't see this movie that you would like to convey to people?
It's just, people have been speculating about the future of the Fantastic Four series because this movie, apparently they had a trilogy lined up, and Fox shit-canned that when this thing, they projected it would take, in, I think $50 million opening weekend. That was their projection.
Right.
It hit $26 million opening weekend. And then people were saying, well, maybe the overseas market will save it, right? It bombed there. So when the overseas market returns, crashed, they completely canceled all plans for the trilogy, and so people have been speculating about the future of the Fantastic Four franchise. People have suggested that, the timeline doesn't work out for Fox to hang on to it because basically Fox needs to make another Fantastic Four movie in 5 years or the rights revert back to Marvel, to Marvel proper.
Right.
But the idea is that this movie was so bad that the only way you could make another one is if it was another reboot, but 5 years wouldn't be enough time to reboot it, to which Spider-Man says, fuck you,
right, I was gonna say,
do whatever we want.
Right, exactly. As Spider-Man says, fuck you, they'll just do another reboot.
I don't even think we're gonna go 5 years between the end of The Dark Knight Rises and the new Batman-Superman thing, so, again, the rules for how long it takes before you can reboot something are completely out the window. They will do whatever the fuck they want whenever they want to do it.
Yeah.
But people have been speculating that it might go, that Fox might pull a thing where they agree to give Marvel the rights back, for some sort of joint partnership over the films, or maybe just for a cash buyout. I don't think so. First of all, we know there's a lot of dislike between the two studios. They're probably they're probably so far away that they're not even at the point where they could talk to each other over something like that. And two, Fox doesn't give a shit about being too soon. If they have to reboot it, they'll do it. And they could just make a movie on the cheap. If they can make a sci-fi Fantastic Four movie on the cheap within 5 years and fart it out into studios, if it's cheap enough, it might be enough to turn a profit. At that point, they could just keep hanging on to the rights in perpetuity. Now, I know people have said, ultimately, they obviously want to make money on this thing, and, purposely putting out cheap films is counterproductive to that. But I've just seen nothing that indicates that, Fox and Marvel are, close enough that they are going to start making deals. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen because, fuck the fans.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know. Personally, this is largely my own bias coming into play here, that I just don't like the Fantastic Four. I just think it just needs to not be a movie, period. Ever again.
Well, no, they made a really good Fantastic Four movie. It's called The Incredibles. Right.
Which there is going to be a second one of those.
Way to strike while the iron's hot, guys.
Yeah, I know, right? But, real quick though, speaking of striking while the iron's hot, or kinda not really doing that, some news about the new Godzilla movie, or the sequel to Godzilla 2014.
Okay, so this is the Gareth Edwards American one.
Yes. Yeah. Godzilla, it's just being tentatively called Godzilla 2. But yeah, and I don't, right, and I don't have much to say about it beyond what we've already said, but just to recap, since it's been a few months since we've mentioned it, it will have, Rodan, Godzilla, Ghidorah, and Mothra.
I don't care about any of those except Ghidorah, because Ghidorah fucking rocks.
Well, that is true. It is going to be released in 2018.
Really? Ooh.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Is there a reason for this pushback?
Because Gareth Edwards is directing Star Wars.
Oh, well, it's Star Wars.
Fuck Star Wars. A Geek Show, a Geek Show at Twitter, or at a Geek Show. Yeah, no, I will say it again in slow motion. Fuck Star Wars. I think one of the, but anyways, I was going to say, I think one of the writers that was working on is also helping out with Star Wars, but they're not. They're doing, evidently there's going to be a Minority Report TV show because
that had to happen.
Right, exactly.
You're gonna have Tom Cruise in it?
One can only hope. I'd watch it. I mean, I just want to see like him hopping, over couches for like 30 minutes, just being all fucking crazy.
Well, you mentioned hopping couches. If the Minority film is anything to go on, all a Minority TV show would be is just Tom Cruise jumping off rooftops for, 40 minutes a night.
Can it be a reality show?
Yeah, make that be the new that's the Minority Report that's the Minority Report TV show. We've unleashed a coked up Tom Cruise on an unsuspecting Los Angeles. We filmed the results.
But anyways, but yeah, the long time is because Edwards is directing one of the Star Wars spin-offs. Yes, we know. Yes, Mike, we know. And actually, like I said, I am looking forward to the movie when it comes out this holiday season as well. It looks like it'll be fun. And it can't be worse than the prequels, so we'll ride that. But, it is also getting the same writing staff as the first movie. And, there was the standard blurb, that was, sourced by Variety magazine, where the writer, Max Borstein, not Jewish at all there, is saying that, oh yeah, it's going to be great. Like he's going to say it's going to suck, right? Yeah, this is the total fucking drag.
Yeah, we're phoning this one in. Fuck this movie.
Yeah,
right?
Fuck this shit. This is going to suck ass. I am not confident in this at all. Look, I just got done with a month-long heroin binge, okay? I wouldn't pay me to write shit right now, but these clowns, they just want me to do it, so here I am. I mean, he's not going to say that, right? So he's like, yeah, no, it's gonna be great. I'm really excited about it. We're gonna do things bigger and better because the world's already established. Okay, so you're gonna make it what a sequel should be. Okay, cool, thank you.
I'm excited to see, Ghidorah.
No, I am totally I'm stoked about all of them, Mothra, Rodan, and Ghidorah. Because Rodan, I mean, okay, I know you don't like him that much, and frankly, he's not my favorite either, but I don't dislike the poor flying fucking thing. It's just that he doesn't get the airtime he deserves, and he kinda got this shit into the stick with superpowers. Okay? He can fly really fast and cause sonic booms. Well, that's great at an air show. Meh! Sorry, was drinking beer while talking, as usual. But yeah, so, I mean, that's really all there is to say about it. I'm not gonna go into any of the real details because they're not really all that relevant, frankly. We're basically the gist of it is, they do have the same directing and writing staff that they did for the 2014 release. And it will be out in, 2018. I think they said June of 2018, tentatively.
Gotcha.
So, that's a thing.
Well, speaking of Star Wars, some news broke about who will be playing one of the villains in Star Wars, Episode 8. So this obviously isn't the new one coming up. The one coming up is Episode 7.
I've lost track. You could have easily told me the new one will be Episode 8 and I'd be like, okay.
No, because you had the first 3, which were 4, 5, and 6, and then the prequels, which were 1, 2, and 3. So the new one coming out is 7. But, Benicio del Toro has been cast as, the villain in Star Wars Episode 8.
And I hope it's the same character that he played in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Just a fat Samoan guy in a fucking Hawaiian shirt, fucking rambling on fucking LSD and fucking crack and shit. It'd be awesome. It'd be great.
Well, I hope he plays the character he played in his cinematic debut in, the James Bond film, License to Kill. Where he played a drug lord's, psychopathic assassin.
That's right. Like when I watched it with you, I didn't even recognize him.
Well, it was like his first film role, so like,
yeah.
I think he was like 16 at the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say like probably like 18 or something, but yeah, he was really young. But I mean, you know.
Like, yeah, just have him be like a drug dealer in space. And like, all the Jedi are like, you need to stop, and he's like, I cut you, Mang!
Right. So, Del Toro playing the villain in episode 8. Got anything else for us?
I hope it's called, Star Wars Episode 8, License to Kill.
No, Star Wars Episode 8, Clear and Present Danger.
And then, and then Timothy Dalton as James Bond comes in and saves the day.
Oh, by the way, and this is off the reservation, but this is something I think you'll agree with me broadcasting on the show.
Yeah, sure.
Mike and I have had this running kind of joke / fantasy. Hold on, not that kind of fantasy. Calm down. Because, you know, we're both big fans of, you know, the Tom Clancy novels and the Jack Ryan movies. And, Mike's a big fan of James Bond, and I enjoy some of them as well from time to time.
T-Dolt! Man, T-Dolt.
Calm down, Mike. Calm down. It's okay. It's okay. So basically, we want epic rap battles of history to do Jack Ryan versus James Bond.
But not before you do my suggestion of William the Conqueror versus Charlemagne.
No. Jack Ryan versus James Bond before that.
Fine.
Because, don't you think that'd be more interesting?
I think it would be cool, yeah.
Yeah, so if you agree with us, go to ERB's YouTube page.
Or Twitter, or their Twitter.
Or Twitter, and tell them you want to see Jack Ryan versus James Bond.
I'm a big Tom Clancy fan. I love the Jack Ryan character. James Bond would wipe the floor with him.
So yes, minions, rise! Both of you! You on the couch, get your dick out of your hand and do it. I see what you're doing, and that's disgusting. Your mother would be ashamed of you.
James Bond will kick his ass.
And popsicle sticks aren't supposed to do that, by the way. Just saying. I don't know, dude. I've had like 4 beers while we've been doing this show, so.
I mean,
I'm
James
out.
Bond
Fuck it.
is a Time Lord, so.
Jack Ryan's kind of a Time Lord too.
Yeah, but one of his personas was Ben Affleck, and so that's gotta suck.
Okay, well yeah, but the Fifth Doctor, I mean, come on.
No, we're not talking about the Doctor. The Fifth Doctor's awesome. You mean the Sixth Doctor?
I always get it mixed up. I'm just saying there has to be one that's kind of like the outlier, right?
James Bond doesn't have an outlier. I mean, there's George Lazenby, but like he was actually pretty good.
No, okay. Well, if we're talking about sucky James Bonds, you know what I'm gonna say.
What, Roger Moore?
Fuck you, Roger Moore. Fuck you.
Roger Moore's films aren't for everyone, but there's no denying that he was James Bond for an entire generation.
Okay, that's just, okay, that's just.
He did 7 films. You cannot discount his contributions to the franchise.
Okay, that's the same thing as George W. Bush having said, it went on to become a nation of over 300 people. Technically, it is correct. Roger Moore was James Bond for however many films. Yes. Technically, you are correct. And that's all I'm going to say. When you make jobs for making machines, you make jobs at the machine-making place.
Right on, W. Right on.
Oh, look. A kitty. Did I do good, Conde? I did good, right?
Right, Conde.
Right, Conde? Yeah. So do we want to go on the big rant?
I'll get us started on that. So, we discussed, we first heard, I think the first time you and I had heard about this was, at E3, right? When at the Nintendo conference they mentioned the Nintendo NX. And then, slowly news started to trickle out about it. We discussed it on a show, a month or two ago about how, in my opinion, I thought it would be a Gen .5 console, sort of what the planned but never released Sega Neptune would have been.
Right.
Sort of like a console that isn't quite next gen, but is sort of halfway there.
Yeah.
And we were contemplating that would be what the Nintendo NX would be. A few details have emerged. Now keep in mind that everything we're about to tell you, they're rumors.
Yeah.
But they come from sources that in the past have a track record of more or less being right on the money when it comes to Nintendo stuff. Liam Robertson, I don't know what the guy's position is, but apparently he knows people in Nintendo. And his
people who like to talk.
And his track record his track record is promising. So a lot of the stuff is coming from him. And so, given his track record, I'm inclined to take this as reality until proven otherwise.
So, before we go into this, I want all of you who are at home and can do this, and if you're a Nintendo fan or a retro gaming fan, go ahead, pause this recording, and go grab you a drink, something strong. Mm-hmm. Now, hopefully you've done so and you are back. We will proceed.
So, the first, I'm gonna start off with the less, this one, I'm still pretty pissed off about this one, but this seems to be the less enraging one, at least to you. So we're gonna do a slow burn, but we're gonna get to that end. We're gonna get to the end boss. We're gonna get to the end boss, but we gotta go through the dungeon first. Apparently, the, Nintendo NX, which right now is a code name. We don't know if they're gonna give it something else. It might be the Wii FU. Who knows? But,
foreshadowing.
The Nintendo NX is apparently reported to be, it will not be as powerful as the PlayStation 4. And that just makes me shake my head. It makes me shake my head. Like, I don't understand what the point of it is then.
Well, okay, here's my thing about this. And, okay, for the record, I'm not happy about that, but I'm not angry simply because it's kind of what I expected. It seems about right for Nintendo.
It does, but, go on.
They've gone on record as saying, well, they don't think that hardware capability has all that much to do with the quality of games that you can put onto a system. And Nintendo's own track record proves them to be correct. Okay, the NES was technologically inferior to both the Sega Master System and the Sega Genesis.
And the Atari 7800 Pro system.
The console of choice for the 1980s. And, it stomped all of them to the goddamn ground. Mm-hmm. The N64, in a lot of ways, was technologically inferior simply because Nintendo had their finger up their ass and their head in the ground and refused to use a disc-based medium for it.
It still beat out the Sega Saturn.
Right. And yeah, it still did fairly well.
Not PlayStation well, but it did beat the Saturn, which was a more powerful system and used a more flexible medium.
Right, exactly. So, Nintendo believes, it's the core argument that I've often put forth with video games in general, that graphics and all this other shit don't matter so much.
But counterpoint. The SNES was more powerful than the Genesis, and it won.
Yes.
And the PlayStation 2 at its time of creation was the most powerful gaming system that had ever been made, and it trounced everything.
Well, here's the thing, dude.
There is a track record of, I mean, yeah, it's true. And then of course in the next gen, the Wii, which was inferior to both the 360 and the PS3, beat those two. But I'm saying that I don't think there's a pattern one way or the other, is what I'm saying. Because in some generations, the less powerful system wins out, and in other generations, the more powerful system wins out. It seems to come more down to marketing than anything else, honestly.
Exactly. That's basically what I'm saying. Power doesn't matter as much as marketing, and most importantly, the games that you have on the thing. Are they good games? Graphics and all that shit, they're not everything. I mean, you know, you and I have beaten this horse half to death, but I'll just touch on it briefly here. It is a kind of a subtext to Nintendo's point when they say this. You know, you've got photorealism in a lot of video games now, or very close to it. It's not quite photorealism, but it's pretty damn close. And yet the indie movement, the retro movement, the come over to Jack's house for a week and then copycat him forever after, movement headed by yourself.
Oh, fuck you. Hey, that got you a Sega Genesis.
Oh, I know. Hey, it's glad I can just not feel like I'm just rambling to you about this shit anymore, and you just be like, while you're just...
No. It's called taking an interest, sir.
Oh yeah, no, I know. But anyways, so I mean, but these movements they're growing, and they're proving this point. They're cementing it finally, because it's always been a debate before. Like, oh, well, the best graphics are really important for the games and blah, blah, blah. And that's being proven now that it's fundamentally a flawed assumption. Gameplay matters. Creativity matters. How fucking fun it is matters. And that's why Nintendo won. The Super Nintendo, in most aspects, was superior to the Genesis. But that's not why it won. Mm-hmm. It won because it had more of the games that people wanted to play. And that was really the end all be all to it. You know, but that's, you know, we'll get to why this may also, there's certain things you can skimp on. And Nintendo is not incorrect in saying, hey, you know, we can make a system that's less powerful, and that doesn't mean it's not going to be as good. You're absolutely right, Nintendo. I agree with you. No, but they're doing other things that we'll get to in a moment.
But I want to counterpoint that last, that last statement of yours.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Power isn't everything, but I think in this case it has to be a factor. Because if you'll remember back when the Wii U launched, they promised it would be a console that would impart appeal to hardcore gamers, and they touted a lot of third-party titles. A lot of those titles never launched because developers said that, quite frankly, the Wii U wasn't powerful enough to run the games that they wanted to make for it. So, if Nintendo's thinking is the Wii U is losing out to the PS4 and the Xbox One, and we need, and it's unsalvageable, if they have made the decision that the Wii U can't be saved, and that they need to go with something else, then you would think that it would at least be comparable to something like the PS4. Because otherwise, if they're gonna make a system that if they're gonna make a system that is still not as powerful as the competition, when the main complaint from third-party developers is the system's underwhelming hardware, then what's the point of it?
I agree. I mean, I don't disagree with you. I'm basically, okay, my bottom point is specs alone aren't enough to make me angry or upset necessarily. In this case, it would make, if there was no other information about the system, which there is that we'll get to in a little bit here, but this bit of information by itself would otherwise just simply make me say, okay, well, that does kind of suck. I would think you would do and could do better, but let's see what else you got. Mm-hmm. And that's all I'm saying here. It doesn't make me mad. It disappoints me a little bit, but it's Nintendo, and this is kind of like what they do. So it doesn't surprise me. It's basically what I expected. So it's just kind of like, whatever.
I would just like to see. Okay. And this is going to tie in a bit to what we're going to talk about soon, but if Nintendo wants to repair their relationship with third-party developers, then they need to stop dicking around, and they need to understand that in order to be a force again, they need their support, and if they want their support, they're going to have to produce a system that can run their games.
Yeah.
And when you say, okay, our current system isn't strong enough, that's a problem, we're going to scrap it early and make something else, and that something else still isn't powerful enough to meet the demands of the third-party developers that you need to be courting, then why not just ride the Wii U out?
I have a theory that I just came up with, and it's a bit crazy.
Okay.
It's a bit of a conspiracy theory, but we're going to take a little bit of a ride here. So, right. So, back in the day, Nintendo would basically lock third-party companies into an exclusivity contract.
And that killed the Master System, yes.
Yeah, it killed the Master System, and it pretty much also kind of killed the Genesis too. I mean, granted, they were towards the end of the Genesis lifespan. That was when the court said, "No, Nintendo, you can't do that.
Stop being a douchebag about it."
Right, and then you started to get these games on the Genesis, but the damage had already been done at that point. When it really could have mattered during that first couple years where Sega was unchallenged in the 16-bit market, it was when it would have been beneficial. Mm-hmm. But Nintendo can't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is their way of trying to, if not force exclusivity with developers, force exclusivity with games. We're going to make our system so goddamn convoluted that you have to write special exclusive games for us.
But see, then a lot of developers are just gonna say, then we just won't write games for you then.
Right. No, I agree with you.
That's what fucked the Saturn up, because the Saturn used a complicated processing system, and a lot of people just said, the PlayStation's easier to program for, so they just didn't make shit for the Saturn.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you, but I'm just trying to figure out, I don't know, Nintendo's thought processes are just so, I'm not going to say complicated, abnormal. It's like trying to understand your eccentric girlfriend in a lot of ways. Like, it's kind of like, what the fuck? I mean, it makes perfect sense to them, but to the rest of us, it's like, okay, sure, guy. And that's one of the other rumors, that, the NX, as it's being called, is not going to have very much third-party support. That there does trouble me more so than the specs. So, I mean, you do have points in the fact that the two are kind of, interrelated, or interconnected, but that is the most troubling thing to me, because you can get by with an inferior system hardware-wise, if you've got the games to back it up. The Wii U has shown that Nintendo cannot, they can be a present force, they can be a known force in the video gaming world with just first party games, which again, no one else could do. Sony couldn't do that, Microsoft couldn't do that. Everyone would be like, bitch please. Nintendo can do it, which is a huge credit to them, but to actually be competitive and to actually stand a chance to prevail, they need third-party support. And, you know, they
need third-party support, and the way that things are right now, they're not gonna get it unless they have specs that match up with their competitors.
Or are at least close enough. And I don't disagree with you on that. Do we want to go to the end boss?
Yeah, let's go to the end boss. So, a patent was filed, with various, trademark offices that basically concerns, a Nintendo system that does not have an optical disc reader.
Right.
Which means that, you know, there's nothing that says this is the NX, but what else could it be? You know, Nintendo is filing a patent for a console. This is their next console. It makes sense this is it.
Could it possibly be a new handheld?
No, because handhelds are always clearly listed as such.
Okay.
This was not listed as a handheld.
So yeah.
And besides, Sony tried the download only handheld, the PSP Go, and nobody bought that fucking thing. So
here's the deal. You know, the funny thing is when I first seen this, I initially got excited.
Me too. I thought cartridges are bad.
Right. Cause go on. Cause I remembered our conversation that we'd had, and you know, that you and I had been thinking about this, and how, you know, like the consolidated solid state drive, you know, the flash drive, something like that, you know, could easily be the medium of the future for gaming. And we're like, all right, Nintendo, you know, I'm thinking, yeah, guys, you got one for a change.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that though it wasn't explicitly stated, and this still may be the case, we might still be right.
The patent clearly said that games would be downloaded from a high-speed internet server.
But it also said that the console does have, ports for, micro SD cards.
That is true.
Those would be, they would have enough memory on them to hold a modern game.
No, they would, yes, but I'm thinking, when I hear the, you know, those SD card slots, as much as I would like it to be sort of a modern day update of the cartridge, I'm sort of thinking in my mind, that could just be like what they do on their DS systems, where the DSs come with, SD memory cards. And that it could just be a memory card slot, essentially, and not a dedicated console slot.
More likely, well, yeah, and that is possible. This console, for what we're understanding it to be for, which is basically it will have a hard drive, there will be no physical medium for it. You will simply download games onto the system.
Yeah.
Presumably, if I had to venture to guess, what's going to happen is the controller for this is going to be some kind of DS type thing.
Yes.
And you will be able to download this console will act as a hub, and you can download the games onto it, and you can take them around the house or wherever you want to go. And then if you save a game on it, you can pull out the SD card, put it in the console, and upload the information and play it at home.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm thinking it's going to be. And frankly, that can suck a dick.
Exactly. Like, okay, let's talk about gamers and physical media. Now,
we like to get physical.
We like physical media. I don't think, Jack, that you and I are I don't think we're outliers within the gamer community when we say that we prefer physical media. I don't think we are. Because you brought up this point yourself. take a game like World of Warcraft, which has no physical component. At the end of the day, whenever that game shuts down, what do we have? Right?
Yeah. Fuck all.
Fuck all. Whereas, if you go out and you buy a cartridge or a disc or a card or whatever the game is stored on, you could, once you're done playing it, you take it out of the console, you put it on your shelf, and it's like, okay, well, I still own the game. Right? And the reason why I say I don't think we're outliers is that the most recent data we have indicates that 80 to 85% of all video game purchases are via physical media. Gamers, by and large, don't seem to be all that eager to play to pay to just straight download. Because I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that a large component of video game fan culture, like, it's always had a tinge of a collector's aspect to it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you were a kid, you had your library of games for whatever system you had, and then, you go over to your friend's house, and it was cool to then see all the shit that they had and compare, like, your collection to theirs.
Right.
There's always been a collector's bend to gaming culture. And
right.
It doesn't, and I'd say that's been lessened through CDs and DVD-ROMs, but at the same time, it's still present. You still have physical media that you put on your shelf. You can say, okay, these are my games. I just don't, like, and again, the data seems to back this up. Gamers don't seem to be buying games online, and I have to ask what Nintendo is thinking. Like, the numbers aren't there to suggest that you can make a go at it just relying on downloads. What are your thoughts? Because I think it seems like they've lost their minds.
Well, okay, here's the thing, right? Like, and I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent on this, because I've been kind of thinking for the last couple minutes. Mm-hmm. And it's, this isn't, okay, this is something that is coming, and I said this a little bit, a few episodes ago, that, this thing of exclusively downloaded games on a console is going to happen sooner rather than later. And then you cited that most gamers prefer media, and I said, well, that's not going to matter. They're going to do it anyway. And, I mean, okay, we've got the Steam box coming out very soon. That's a bit different because it is a PC-based, like, it's PC-based in the sense that Steam is a PC platform, and they're bringing that into a more portable, quote-unquote, supposedly economical, format. And people are okay with it because it's PC, and PCs have been downloading games for a while now, right? And it's all well and good. But now when Nintendo's doing it, and you and I are ready to have their head on a fucking stake. And I think I know why. In my hands right now, I'm holding a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog that you sent me. The date is 1991. I can take this cartridge out of the fucking box, and I can put it in, and it will run just like it did. Just like my old version did that I had 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. Video gaming has come so far as a medium. It's actually legitimately considered to be art now by most people. And it's just like, your favorite book or your favorite movie or, your favorite, music. And this is the same blight that affects all of these mediums as we slowly go to a digital format. And it's a matter of preservation. And it's a matter of the human mind as well. And mm-hmm. though, I mean, this is a generational thing, like our children and our grandchildren, they won't think anything about it really. They'll look at this old copy of Sonic the Hedgehog and they'll say, oh, well, this is weird.
This is quaint.
Yeah,
Where do I stick the USB drive? You put it in a console!
But you know, is a painting that hangs up in a museum, is it quaint because we can go to it and touch it and then be tased by the security guards?
Didn't you see the guy?
You know, I mean, it is art, and just like, you know, there have been great works of visual art over the years, there have been great works of literature, there have been great works of music, and these things, you know, there are museums to preserve these things in a physical medium because they last longer. You know, like, 100 years from now, there will be a physical copy of Led Zeppelin 4. Mm-hmm. There will be these copies of Sonic the Hedgehog. You know, there may not be hardware to play them on, but you will still be able to find them here and there.
Keep the flame alive.
And as we go to a digital medium, we are losing that, potentially. You know, we are losing that expression, that mindset that these developers are putting into this game. And yes, a lot of games are just crap and they should be forgotten. But then again, so are a lot of movies, a lot of pictures, a lot of books. You know, any art form has its crap. Video games are no different. Mm-hmm. But we stand a chance of losing that, and with that, a piece of this time set in our history of where we were, of what we were thinking, because just like movies and books, and music reflect the consciousness of the society at the time, so do our video games. And as we progress on to this invisible cloud-based bullshit, you know, it's unreliable. We can't, yeah, you can say, yeah, well, you know, you can always download it and back it up to a CD. You're not going to be able to do that on this Nintendo console. You're not going to be able to do that on a Steam box. I mean, you're not going to be able to do that on most of these systems. That's going to go away because you're still, eventually, when you say, well, you can back it up to this or that, guess what? You're still talking about a physical media.
Exactly.
So, if you're saying, well, you shouldn't get upset about physical media because you can always put it on physical media, well, they're phasing that out, you ball-fondling cocksleeve.
It's like, and another point, touching on what you said, you know, you can pick up a cartridge of Sonic the Hedgehog that runs just as well today as it did back in 1991. Okay. Now let's say for the Nintendo NX, there's Super Mario Brothers NX, fuck your mother. Right?
Rated E for everyone.
Exactly. And this is a console. This is an entirely download-based console. There are no discs or cartridges or whatever. Will you be able to play that game in 20 years?
Right, and let's even forget the consumer rights aspect of it. Whereas we're paying, because that's long since been fucked in the ass, right? I mean, you pay $60 for a game that when that console's lifespan is over, wish in one hand and shit in the other, pal, you're fucked. Mm-hmm. You know, or if there's, you know, basically everything is becoming like World of Warcraft.
I've got two PlayStation 4 games. I have a PlayStation 4. I only have 2 games because I can't. I just go to I go to EB Games and I take a look at the PS4 games. I'm like, okay, well that game looks interesting. That game looks interesting. But and it used to be that, you know, I'd be like, I could swing that if it's interesting and I can afford to take the risk. But now for like $75 a game, I'm not going to spend $75 on a game I might not like. Right?
Move to America, they're only 60.
Oh, wow.
But, and the thing is, okay, now you showed me this video, and I'd already seen it, but you showed me a video of teenagers reacting to an 8-bit NES.
Yes.
And you initially showed it to me as a thing of, oh my god, these kids, what the fuck? Cause they're saying something like, things of like, what is this, a tape deck?
Like, the best way I can describe it, when the guy tells them to try to load the cartridge into the NES, it's like trying to watch an ape build, like, a ladder out of branches.
Right, exactly, but, I noticed something else when I was watching it. Every one of those kids, as far as I recall, you could tell when they finally got the cartridge in there, they were connecting with it. They enjoyed that tactile feeling of putting the cartridge in the slot. There was
you put it in its wanting hole and you press down.
Exactly. And it's not a generational thing. It's not, because you can hand these things to someone of any generation, and I bet you they may not know, they may think the technology is antiquated, which it is, admittedly, but that simple sensation, that simple joy of holding the game in their hand and putting it in the slot. Thank you for joining us on our tour of Innuendo Town. But it will generate that same feeling of satisfaction and joy that it generates in us when we do that. This is not a generational thing. This transcends that. And we're doing a disservice. I'm not saying there's not a merit to non-physical medium. It's fine. I don't mind it at all. I'm saying that there should be a choice. Just like it is now. There should be a choice. Fine. You buy the game on a disc. You put it on the hard drive. You can upload the whole goddamn thing to the hard drive. But you still have the disc. And the thing is, okay, say the NX breaks down. Okay, then you're fucked. Because all your games are on that hard drive. What if it's broken down after Nintendo no longer supports the NX? Which is another thing with this, just like you brought up earlier. They're pulling a Sega. Sega panicked when the 32X didn't work, they panicked when the Saturn didn't work, and they cut everything off prematurely. They kept throwing things against the wall and none of it stuck. And
someone buy one of these things, please!
Right? People want to buy this damn thing! Come on! And people lost confidence in Sega as a console developer when their swan song, the Dreamcast, was ahead of its time in so many ways.
The Dreamcast was a wonderful console, but they'd ruined their reputation by rushing things to and out of market so quickly that it never really stood a chance.
Right, and then of course the PS2, but still, I mean,
the PS2 shat on the grave.
Right, I mean, if they hadn't have fucked around with the Saturn, if they had just held off on the Saturn altogether, and just put more time into the Dreamcast, and maybe gotten it out earlier, because there was no Saturn, they'd only been working on the Dreamcast that entire time, they could have been a marketplace dominator.
Yeah, if they just had not panicked with the 32X and just written the 32X out as their 32 system.
Right, and while the PS2 still probably would have won in terms of sales and popularity, Sega would not have faded into obscurity. They would possibly still even be making consoles now because they would have been in the position that Nintendo was in. Okay, so we took a few lumps on that, but damn, did we have a good run while it was going. Let's keep pushing on. And we would have had, at least, if they wouldn't still be developing consoles to this day, we would have at least gotten one or two more out of them. And,
the Sega Master System too.
And Nintendo is doing the same thing, okay? The Wii U's not working, so they're pulling the plug on it too soon.
They're already reducing, they're only going to make, 2,000. They're only going to make 2,000 of these things for the rest of the year.
Right, and, okay, so, they're going on to the NX,
NX will begin production in October, by the way.
Which is underpowered, which means its life cycle will be shorter, before it's just so outclassed that Nintendo has no choice, even if the console is doing well, which it won't, they'll have no choice but to usher in another iteration. And the people that have not, the Wii U, it hasn't made people lose confidence in Nintendo for the most part. It's made us disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know Nintendo can do better. But the NX, it will make people lose confidence. And when Nintendo pulls the plug on the goddamn NX, and the thing breaks, they're no longer supporting it because they've moved on. What are you gonna do? You don't have a physical media that, unless they have a way that you can back an entire game onto an SD card and get your own physical copy that way, then you're not going to have any kind of a recourse. You're just not. So, it's not just that I'm disappointed, it's not just that I'm angry, it's that I'm sad. Not just with Nintendo, but just the way this thing is going. It's, you know, you can call this, you know, us old farts, well, more so myself than Mike here, you know, just not understanding the times and everything. No, I do understand it. But so often we get lost in the quote unquote march forward that we don't take long enough to look back.
Mm-hmm.
And just because something is obsolete doesn't mean that it's not worth saving. It doesn't mean that we can't learn something from it and incorporate that. Physical media has a place. It has a need that it fills. Not just
obviously it does. 85% of gamers feel it does.
Exactly. And it's not just the tactile satisfaction of putting a cartridge into a...
Although, damn, that feels good.
It does. It does. It's not just that. There is a logical reason why it is practical to have physical media for your games. And, you know, these developers ignore that at their folly. So that's my 2 cents on that. I know I bloviated quite a bit on that, but that's my thoughts on it.
Well, again, I mean, let's use the Genesis because that's the one I think you and I have been indulging in lately, right? I mean, you could still play Genesis games. You can go out, you can buy a used Genesis, you can buy used Genesis games, and they will still play as well as they did 20 years ago.
And all of these games, they're cheaper than what you're paying for the current generation.
By far.
I mean, you can get a used Super Nintendo, a used Genesis for about anywhere from $40 to $60, depending on the market where you live. Mm-hmm. And the games, for most of the popular games, for most of the good games, you're spending anywhere from $5 to $30.
Indeed. But, you know, let's say that once Nintendo stops supporting the NX, that system breaks down. You're kind of fucked. You can't play those NX games 20 years from that point.
Right.
But you can play Super Nintendo games today. You can play Sega Genesis games. Hell, you can play Atari 2600 games today.
You can play the Vectrex.
You could still play the Magnavox Odyssey, which was the very first home console.
Yeah.
Today.
And it's like, what, 40 years old now?
1972.
Yeah.
Was when it came out. You can still play the Magnavox Odyssey.
Yeah, so, over 40 years old, and the goddamn things still work. Some of them. You can find one.
Yeah, I mean, it's still functional technology, whereas, you know, you will not be able to play, and sure, you could get it repaired, but that's the thing. You'd need a specialized technician to fix the NX just to be able to play it once they no longer support it. Sega hasn't supported the Genesis since the late 90s. But you can still play it. And that's what physical media, that is the advantage physical media affords you. Now, I have a theory for why Nintendo's doing this, and this goes into another rumor I've heard about the NX. This one seems to be less substantial, but I think there might be something to it because of this theory I've concocted.
Okay.
That Nintendo is just going to say fuck it, and they are going to actively block out third-party support for the NX. And my theory why I think that might hold true is that they are going to push this online system as the all Nintendo all the time network. They won't have to deal with rights. They won't have to deal with sharing profits from this online store with any third-party developer. They can just say, this is the Nintendo Hub. You can download every Nintendo game ever made from it, including games made for the new NX. You can download anything directly to your console. It is, and I think they're saying, fuck it to third-party developers, fuck it to hardcore gamers. This is a console I think they're going to try to completely saturate the Nintendo fan marketplace. And they are hoping that there's enough people there that it will be profitable, that there's enough of a demand there that, if they get every Nintendo fanboy and fangirl out there to buy this NX and to buy a subscription to this online store and to buy all of their favorite games, that they will make bank on it. That's what I think it is. And they do not want or care about third-party developers. Nintendo has always done things their way, and I think all the frustrations that they've had dealing with third-party companies from the N64 on, that they might be at the end of their rope, and they're just gonna say, fuck it, we don't need you. We are going to make a run at this on the strength of our first party IP alone.
Well, here's the problem, and I don't disagree that that's what they're doing. That could very well be what they're doing. But if they the thing is, they're still going to have to deal with third party, because if they try to upload the hit NES games, right? A small percentage of those are first party. Because, I mean, what about your Contras, your Castlevanias, your Final Fantasies, your Dragon Warriors, the list goes on and on and on and on. Third party games. They're going to have to work something out.
No, I think they're going to try to do some sort of almost revisionist history in a way, where they're going to be like, the only NES games worth a damn are Super Mario Brothers, Zelda, and Metroid. Honestly, I think that's what they're gonna do.
That's not gonna be because basically that's what the Wii U is.
Yeah, but I think what they're going, I think that the big marketing push behind the NX is going to be, this console is the hub of all things Nintendo. You buy an NX, you have instant access to the online store. You can buy and download every single first-party Nintendo game ever made. And they will make it as easy and as straightforward and as cheap as they possibly can while still being profitable. And they will sell this to every, person who considers themselves a Nintendo fanboy. And I think Nintendo is like, look, let's not kid ourselves. We have been outflanked by Microsoft and Sony. We are going to, we have our niche, we have our fan base, and we are going to saturate that to the highest order.
Here's the thing though, right? Like, again, I'm not saying that that's not what they're doing. I'm not saying that you're wrong. Mm-hmm. I still argue that that's basically what the Wii U has become. Because if you look on the Wii, I mean, you don't have a Wii U, but if you go on the Virtual Console, and I never got to show you that when you were here, sadly.
I've experienced the Virtual Console through my 3DS.
Okay, well, I mean, there's even more of it, I think, on the Wii U. But,
yeah. Wii U has access to the Super NES games, which for some reason aren't on the DS version.
Right. But I mean, that is largely what the Wii U has become. Mm-hmm. They're already at that point, and the thing is,
which is why I think maybe the Wii U was sort of a beta test for this.
I don't think so. I don't think it was intentional. I think it's when the third parties dropped them, they're like, okay, well, let's run with this. Mm-hmm. The thing is, if they do that, if they add substantial features to it with a wider variety of games and work out, they're not going to be able to get all of the rights to all of the NES games. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the developers have gone out of business. But if they can secure contracts with like Konami and Capcom released Mega Man 1 through 6 on Steam. Mm-hmm. $15 with bonus content. Oh, I want to get that so bad. I mean, shit. So, I mean, if they can get deals like that with like Capcom and Konami and the other big developers of the time and go up from, the NES era to the SNES era, Square Enix would have to be on there for the Final Fantasy games, so on and so forth. You'd have to have that for it to work. And I don't know, even then I don't know. I don't see it being sufficient. What really makes me sad is, yes, Nintendo has been outflanked by Microsoft and Sony, but they don't have to be. They've got more money than Sony!
Yeah, but yes, they have more money, which is why I think they're going to, they feel they can do shit like this, cause hey, what happens if it doesn't, work out? Alright, they can afford to not sell a single console or game for 50 years and still remain financially viable. And so, where's the risk? Exactly.
So then why, this is what I don't get. Like, why? Why do this? Why not take, squeeze more life out of the Wii U?
No, exactly.
Release the Wii U version 2. Cheaper, blah blah blah. You can go and you can grab one for $150. Do something. And squeeze some more life out of it. Get your R&D department in fucking gear. Get them making a console that will hold its own, that will stand toe to toe, if not whoop the shit out of, the PS4 and the Xbone. Mm-hmm. And get the third party developers back on it. Take you 5 years. Well, maybe not 5 years. Take you, 3 years to do it. I mean, you've got the money, Nintendo. You've got the fucking money. You're not going to lose money on this because you're going to be fielding a viable console. Mm-hmm. Now, if the NX comes out at a price point, because they are saving money by making it like this. They are. They're not paying rights out. The hardware's less complicated. I mean, if they come out with this thing and it's at a good price point, say $100 to $150, and it has some good features like pack-in games, shit like that, I'll get one. And that makes me feel bad. That's kind of like my abusive relationship, the way you are with EA. Like, I am enough of a Nintendo fanboy to where, like, I'll buy it for that. If they release, I'll also wait and see, okay, are you gonna bring out any good new first party titles? I wanna see a fucking Metroid without the goddamn fucking Blitzball or whatever the fuck it was. Right? I mean, I want that shit too, and somehow,
yes.
One second. Somehow, this, somehow this has just gotten way out of hand with Nintendo. I don't know what they're doing. I'm hoping that since, I don't mean to say anything bad about Iwata, but, maybe since his passing, if someone like Miyamoto takes over, Miyamoto strikes me, since he is more of a creative type, I actually think that would make him in some ways better for the business end of things, because he's going to say, because he's often gone on record as saying, I really loved this game from back in the day, referring like Castlevania or Mega Man or, something like that, right? I really love these games and it gave me these ideas about new things I could do too, and we all just kind of borrowed from each other and expanded on what one another could do, and we all came out winners. He has this kind of almost hippie-ish mindset with the whole thing. And maybe if Miyamoto does end up taking the helm, that things might go in a different direction because he'll be like, hey, why can't we go back to that?
Well, because back to that involved monopolistic business practices that have the courts have since deemed illegal.
Well, right, but I mean, it doesn't have to now, though, is the thing. I mean, Konami, in news that we have not reported to you, you guys, but Konami can go fuck themselves. Mm-hmm. Because they basically said, we're not making console games anymore. We're going to mobile-based games. We're going to, not just mobile-based games, mobile free-to-play microtransaction-based games.
Where, hey, you've lost all your lives, you can wait an hour, or you can pay $3 and continue now.
Exactly. Waiting simulators. Mm-hmm. Not pay to win, pay to wait less.
Indeed. Well, they're not the only ones who have gone down that route. Sega hasn't abandoned consoles completely, but they're putting an emphasis on mobile games. And Atari has said that they're going to use a more social media mobile strategy in the future.
Yeah.
So already, those are three classic gaming companies: Sega, Konami, Atari.
And it's really funny.
I mean, all we need now is Namco and Capcom.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny in the sense
Where
that...
have all the cowboys gone?
Right? It's really funny that these older companies, I think they're jumping the gun. I think they're trying too hard to get with the times. And they're not waiting long enough to see just exactly what the times are. Mm-hmm. Because, the whole social media thing, for whatever reason, people seem to like it. I personally, and I'm not gonna lie, I see no redeeming value in it whatsoever. I do the Twitter thing because we have a podcast and it's kind of expected. Personally, I don't see any value or merit in social media. I think it's stupid. You know what? If you want to talk to someone you went to high school with, you pick up the goddamn phone and fucking call them. If you want to talk to your fucking aunt 3 states away, you pick up the fucking phone and you fucking call her. Alright? Mm-hmm. This social media stuff is fucking bullshit. It just makes you talk to people that you don't want to fucking talk to. Mm-hmm. I want the world's first anti-social network. That's what I want.
Remember to follow us at a Geek Show on Twitter.
Exactly, right? But seriously, I mean, like, Mark from Classic Game Room said with the Sega Genesis in one of the old Madden games, there is no feature to upload your high scores to Twitter because the Sega Genesis didn't have time for that shit.
Exactly. It didn't.
And, there should be this thing, on the new EA Sports games where you've tweeted 5 scores in 1 hour. Your friends are beginning to unfollow you and disown you. Are you sure you wish to tweet another score? Press yes to continue. No, it's so disingenuous. All these fucking people, they're like, tweet your scores, tweet your this, tweet your nuts. What they really should be saying is, hey, would you like us to help advertise our shit for free? Mm-hmm. That's all it fucking is. They've discovered that it's great advertising. That's the whole thing with it. I mean, yes, social media, it does have good points because it's given us, many laughable moments of political incorrect humor that Mike and I have laughed in private about, for years now, and we're not going to go into some of them. New York Patriots. Anyways.
You know what? Social media is great in some respects. That's all I'm gonna say.
Right. So, it's, I don't know. I guess we're kind of going off on the tangent here because I know I'm kind of drunk.
Well, I will say this. You brought up the Genesis. If Nintendo does go through with this, no physical media console, I think that's the opening for Sega to rejoin the console market. They could create a console that takes cartridges, SD cards, and, discs. And they could then dust the old slogan out of mothballs, Sega does what Nintendo don't.
I wish they would. I wish they could. The thing is, and Sega doesn't even own Sega anymore.
No, Sammy, does the pachinko people in Japan own Sega now.
Yeah, and though they were for a while a third-party developer for the 8-bit NES.
What, Sammy?
Yes. They made a much derided game that most people hate, but I loved as a kid, called Amagon. They made that one. And they made a lot of others too, but Amagon was the only one that I ever played. And I loved that fucking game, right? I don't know why, I just did. It was a cutesy kind of a Contra thing.
Now Sammy just makes, basically Japanese slot machines. It's basically what pachinko is.
Japanese slots. Anyways.
It's like a combination of, from what I can understand, pachinko is a combination of pinball and slot machines. So basically pinball but gambling. That's what Sammy does.
The Japanese seem to have this thing for adding gambling to everything. Like, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or what, but they like to gamble. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but they own Sega now, but see, that's the thing, like, pachinko isn't exactly a struggling industry in Japan. It's pretty profitable. They could probably afford to put a console out there. Come on. Put a console out there that embraces physical media. And again, Sega does what Nintendo don't. And make sure that damn thing has blast processing.
We should start a Kickstarter for you and I to buy Sega.
How much could it be worth at this point, right?
We should try this, and then Mike and I have had this thing, like, I've told him, like, if I win the lottery, I'm going to buy Sega, I'm going to buy Atari, I'm going to combine the two into, now stay with me people, Satari. Yes, I said that. And I'm going to have them make a new console, because you will work for me, Code Monkeys. And it will be called the Satari Rampage. Because Sega's last system was a Jaguar.
Sega's was the Dreamcast.
Atari's was a Jaguar. Mike's cat is named Ranny, aka Rampage. Mm-hmm. So, and my cat's name is Zoe, and this Atari Zoe just wouldn't work. Sorry, Zoe, you're just gonna have to wait for the handheld. So it would be this Atari Rampage. Mm-hmm. And that Atari Jaguar infomercial we showed you guys, earlier, we're going to do another one of those, preferably with the original actors.
It's gonna be a sequel where, Bob is now a strung out heroin addict on the street after he bought the Atari Jaguar.
And his life fell apart because of it.
His life fell apart afterwards. His wife left him, took the kids. He's a heroin junkie on the street. His only possession is the Atari Jaguar, which he holds under his arm.
Next to a picture of his kids as he sleeps under newspapers in an alley. Not dark at all.
Oh, no, and then like, Jack, the crazy guy, not you, but the crazy guy from the commercial.
The other crazy Jack.
He's gonna come up, he's like, hey Bob, what's up? He's like,
you ruined my fucking life!
It's like, I got a new console for you. It's the Satari Rampage. He's gonna go, Satari? I thought it was Atari.
Bob! God damn it, Bob!
Damn it, Bob, the ignorant drivel that spews out of your gob hole is embarrassing both of us. And of course, when he takes him back to the cave, it will never be in focus, but in the background will be like a dictator-style painting of you in a military outfit.
Yes. And there's gonna be like this Orwellian style, like 2 minutes of hate thing, where it's gonna be like, our enemy is Sony. I thought Nintendo, shut the fuck up! Our enemy has always been Sony.
You've always been at war with Sony!
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we need a Kickstarter to make this happen. I think that's a thing that needs
I mean, we could probably buy Atari right now on our own. We might need some backup, we might need some startup capital to buy Sega.
Yeah, I've got like 50 cents in the couch. That should be enough for Atari.
Atari is a company of 10 people right now, and they, like, publish Dragon Ball Z games, so I don't even know what they do anymore.
Oh, Jesus. But anyways, I think we have bloviated long enough. We thank you for listening to our drunken ramblings, or I guess my drunken ramblings. I think Mike might be a little bit less inebriated than me.
Yeah. Just enough to get the wheels greased, you know.
And my wheels have done slid off.
Well, you can follow us on Twitter at The Geek Show. Email us at basicallygeekshow@gmail.com. You can find us at basicallyasportshow.com. You can also find us on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spreaker. For Jack, this is Mike signing off on Bags 61.
Good night, everybody.